It is a tremendous pleasure to be joined by Callie McCullough to this in this program. She is a musician currently based in Nashville. How are you today, Callie? Thank you for joining us.
I'm doing, thanks so much. I'm great. How are you? Is it a good morning up there?
It is currently afternoon, but I did have a pretty good morning. Thanks for asking.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I'd like to begin by asking about your upcoming single. Is titled "What If I Don't?" and as of this recording, it has not been released yet, but let me know when it will be released and what the song is about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it actually comes out on Friday, so in 2 days. So it's coming out on September 8th. And the song is called What If I Don't? And it's really lighthearted and fun. And it's a song that I wrote at a time in my life where it felt like there was all of this pressure around me to settle down right away, get married, have a baby, make sure I had a stable job. And I realized as all of that feedback loop was swirling around my brain that none of it had anything to do with me. I was very happy just living my life and chasing down my own goals. And so I wrote this song like with my good friend Scotty Kipper, just very tongue in cheek, just being like, hey, what if I don't do these things? My life could look like this. And that would be a lot of fun. So for me, it's something really lighthearted and fun that I wanted to get out. But I hope that when people listen to it, it will become like a freedom anthem that just inspires them to live their life however they feel is best for them and kind of ditch that societal pressure and that fear that we put on people about getting older. Like it's all over once you're 30.
Mhm. Let's see. So yeah, pivoting from that, how does getting older and reaching the 30-year mark of feel like for you?
I mean, personally, I love getting older because I think you get a little bit smarter every year, and when things come at you, how to handle them a little bit better. And I also think, you know, especially having recently, getting older is a freaking privilege. So, I think that life is long and that we shouldn't be putting pressure, especially on young women that if you don't have the one by the time you're 25 and you don't have a baby by the time you're 30, that it's all over for you. So I think that is BS and that we should enjoy our lives and also make our own choices, right? Like if you want to have a baby, I think that that is awesome. And if you don't want to have a baby, I also think that is awesome.
Mhm. So, is it just the societal expectations around marriage and having children that bother you, or is it the married life and having children that bothered you too?
Oh, I don't have any problem with the idea of marriage and children. And I don't, I think that those are great and I may want those things someday. Absolutely. What I'm saying is we have to stop scaring people into the fact that, there's a clock ticking on them and also that it's okay to not make those choices. This song is really lighthearted and fun. It's not a hard line on anything. It's very whimsical. So maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll be happy just blazing my own trail.
Hmm, I see. Um, I actually got to know you through Mallory Johnson from Newfoundland, and she's currently settling in Nashville too. And I I recently ordered a CD from her, the album Surprise Party, and in it she has a song called Mary, which is there's some overlap between her songs and
Oh,
yours, and she writes about how she doesn't wishes to be married, but she does want a wedding. So I wonder if that's something that you share as well.
I love Mallory, and Mallory's a great friend, and we've been buddies for years down here. And I remember kind of showing each other our songs we had written separately in the same time period and laughing about it because we were going through similar things. Because it's that common dialogue of like, okay, you're coming up to 30, like, are you gonna die alone? And both just being really lighthearted and whimsical about it. Mallory's such an amazing talent, like great Newfoundland talent. And her record's amazing. We actually co-wrote one of the songs on the record called Not Your Heart. And Surprise Party is such a beautiful record, but I don't really have any plans one way or the other on all of these things. I just wanted to write a lighthearted song saying that, hey, you can live your life however you want to.
Mhm. I see. So of course, you are teasing out some new music according to the press kit that you've sent me. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, I'm working on a new project. So no definite releases, nothing concrete in stone, but we're definitely going to be rolling out a bunch more new music next year. So we've got What If I Don't this week, and next year we're hoping to put out a number of new songs and working towards a new project. I've been working with a Grammy-nominated producer, Dave Brainerd, who is really renowned for bringing these like Americana talents and helping them find a sound that really crosses over into a country market. So people like Jamie Johnson, people like Brandy Clark, and really helping them find a great first foothold on their new records. And so that's been a really fun process, working on the record together and writing for it. And it's just really exciting to hear your music come to life in a way that you're proud of and that you're really excited about. So it's been really fun, and I'm looking forward to, showing the world more new music.
Hmm. Yeah. So as someone who's perfectly outside the music world, I think this question might come off as a bit stupid, but when you are working with a producer, what do you guys do together?
Well, it's a lot of communication and dialogue, and then it's a lot of actually making music. So we'll go in the studio. Dave has his own studio, which is really decked out. And I'll bring in the songs and I'll say, okay, I'm thinking about this song and I'm thinking about maybe it could sound like this. And so we'll sit and we'll play around with different sounds and different tempos and different vibes for it, and just start laying some things down, get a feel for it. And then kind of live with that for a minute. And then we'll go in and bring in some incredible musicians and start to build the sound of the track and kind of do that. We have the first chunk of the new project that's already done, and we're starting on the second half of it now. So, but yeah, it's a lot about creative collaboration, different instrumentation, and melding someone's ideas with yours to bring something to life.
See. Well, so what about the life of the musician that appealed to you and still appeals to you?
I mean, it's an interesting thing for me. So I come third generation in a musical family. So I was just kind of born right into it. I always joke, I grew up in one of those families where they just like huck a banjo on you when you're 5, put you on stage and hope for the best, which isn't exactly how it went down, but I really grew up backstage. My dad was big in the rock and blues circuit. My mom was really into traditional country and bluegrass. So I had a lot of those influences meld together. And really had a household that there was music being made all the time. There was people coming over to jam all the time. There was really iconic records being played and shown to me from a young age. So I was, singing in the studio with my parents when I was a little itty bitty kid, and going to their shows and kind of traveling around with them as a child. And I just was kind of born with it, in the sense that I could never stop singing weird little songs to myself. I couldn't put it down. And I think they desperately hoped that I would pick an easier career path. But I think now they're like, okay, she had to do it. This is good for her. And watch her spread her wings and fly. So, music is one of those things that, like, even if you put it down for a moment, it'll circle back around. And for me, I was obsessed. And I also loved, just the idea that you could do something that would take you to, travel the world and see all kinds of beautiful new places and have experiences, that were much bigger than the small town I grew up in. So I don't know. I feel like I had a choice, but I never really had a choice because it's just in your blood.
Yeah. Mallory Johnson says that her family is a musical family too, and she grew up in that particular environment. So, do you find that you guys can relate based on that particular background?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, Mallory definitely. Actually, interestingly enough, her mom, Loretta Johnson, was kind of touring the music circuit in Canada at the very same time that my mom was. And so they had kind of crossed paths a little bit. So it's this sort of like legacy thing. And we have a couple other friends with a similar story as well. So I think that's really cool when you have, that shared experience of background, but also, it tends to be like you have the similar musical roots. Like Mallory and I both, neither of us make traditional Celtic music, but we both have a background in it. And so that's kind of really fun to nerd out on together as well.
So, did you grow up in Canada?
I grew up in Ontario. Just half of my family lives in the Stratford area, and the other half of my family lives up in, Collingwood, Thornbury, which we call the Beaver Valley.
Mhm. Tell me about what's it like growing up in that small town of yours.
Well, we actually didn't even quite grow up in a town. We grew up like, outside a cornfield. So you actually had to drive like 20, 30 minutes to get to a convenience store. So I also think it's like, it's a little bit like the era was different as well. We grew up in the era where you just, you put your kids on their bikes, and if they were home by dinner time, that was fine. And you didn't have a cell phone.
Mhm.
I think we got internet when I was like 13. So it was kind of a different time period, but it was very peaceful, right? There was no social media when I was going through high school. There was a lot of freedom. I found like wandering. My grandparents had something like 1,000 acres of apples, kind of wandering the farm and having a lot of like space for your thoughts. And I think, as a songwriter, that's definitely something that has shaped me is kind of growing up in that whimsical dreamer environment where you can wander around and hear your own thoughts and find your own voice.
Do you find that if, say, the internet and social media appeared, earlier in your childhood, would your would your childhood experience be better or worse?
I mean, I can't really say because it's such a different era, but I personally have such a nostalgia for the fact that I grew up without those things. So I think that, my generation, we were really lucky to grow up in a pre-social. Like, I mean, it was starting. Like MySpace was a thing, Instant Messenger was a thing. We got Facebook when I was like in my last year of high school. So it was starting, but I think it was a really beautiful way to grow up. I feel like we were all I think when we connect on social media, sometimes we disconnect in person, because we're all at a concert on our phones. We're not at the concert. So I think it's an interesting thing. So I don't know. I feel very fortunate to have grown up in an era before all of those things, but I also see, teenagers like growing up and thriving and building businesses on social media at a young age and seeing like the world of possibility that brings into their lives of things they can find and see and dream that they wouldn't otherwise know from their small town. So it's six of one, half dozen of the other.
Mhm. Yeah, I have a mixed feeling about social media in general because I think people use it too much, but I don't regret it ever appearing because like many, I had a chance to build connections via the internet more than I do in real life, and this podcast is, I think, an example of that. I had not been the case, I would never have met people like yourself.
Yeah, I think it does. It gives us a lot of opportunities, right? I think it's just finding that balance for our own lives, and for everybody that can look different.
Mhm. Yeah. So, how do you use social media, or how did you figure out how to use social media in order to help with not just your music, but life in general?
I mean, I'm such like an organic hippy dippy old soul that I try to, keep it within a boundary because I think it's such a beautiful tool to talk to talk to people and meet people. So I get to connect with other musicians. And most importantly, I get to connect with people who are coming to know my music, which is really exciting to be able to find an audience for your music that love it and appreciate it. And so I think that that's really special. And I love that about it. But I find I just set a lot of boundaries. Like I try to just leave my phone in the other room sometimes and be present where I'm at. I like to go for a walk without my phone. I like to make the post and then just go live some life and check it later and, respond and comment and chat with people, within boundaries. But I think it's important to have real life as well as online life. But it is so incredible too to be able to follow, so many other musicians that I've come up around, in the Canadian music circuit as well as here in Nashville and follow that and stay caught up with each other and obviously, connect with music fans and music lovers and for me personally, the best thing the internet has brought to me is just watching people's pets. I just love to sit there and watch pet videos. I have like this girl who has a panther that's her pet that I follow in Siberia, and like I would never see that without the internet. And I'm obsessed with following this panther, you know?
Do you have pets of your own?
I just have the one cat. She's like a little baby panther.
Yeah. Do you have a preference between cats and dogs?
No, I love all the fluffy creatures. I also would love a bunny rabbit.
Awesome. Yeah. So, what made you decide that Nashville was the way to go?
I mean, I think for me, I had toured in a number of different bands, about three different bands as I was, coming up as a teenager. And I was on tour in California at the time with another band, and that was starting to wind down. It had felt like, each band had a season and things would really pick up, and then, something would bands, come together and fall apart pretty regularly. And so as that one was kind of coming to a close, we were touring in California, we were living there. And so we'd already had, work visa status. And I had been coming back and forth to Nashville since I was about 18, 17 maybe. And so I had always known I wanted to move here when the time was right. And so at this point I was done college, my band was falling apart, and I was like, okay, this is my time. Because a couple of the big things of opportunity that Nashville held for me outside of the industry itself was, the chance to, hone the craft of songwriting and really cut my teeth in, the biggest songwriting town in the world, and have the opportunity to write with so many different people. And, it's like rock sharpens rock, so we all, feed off of each other and get better together. But the other big thing about Nashville is that I had such a love for like bluegrass music and roots music, and I was really trying to chase down some of those sounds and where I could find more of them. So I was coming here and hanging out at bluegrass jams and had been going back and forth for a number of years. So when the band was ending and I bought a station wagon and I put all my stuff in it, and I was like, all right, now is my time. If not now, when? And it's the best decision I've ever made. I've been here for over 9 years. So we're really counting on that 10-year town thing to kick in.
So, do you still go back to your hometown often?
I do. I do get there whenever I can. So I'm actually heading up next week. It's Canadian Country Music Week is in Hamilton, Ontario, which is just a hop and a skip from my hometown. So I hopefully will get to pop into Stratford, say hey to everybody, and then head on over to Country Music Week. And we have a couple exciting shows at Country Music Week. And it's, Canadian Country Music Week is always so great because, Canada's a big country. So we get everybody in one place to hang out for a few days, and it's a really great time.
I've had the opportunity and privilege to talk to numerous figures in Canadian country music. Yeah, obviously, Mal Johnson is one of them, and even though I was in Canada for 4 years as an undergraduate, I've never had the opportunity to dive into the country music scene all that much. So it's
Right.
it's semi-ironic in a way that, I my introduction to the scene there is not really in Canada itself, but I would really love to attend. It seems like a really exciting scene for you guys there.
And so where are you now?
Hungary, Budapest.
Wow, that's incredible.
Mhm.
And so what do you do there?
I'm studying.
Awesome. Hungary. I have not been there. I've had the opportunity to travel a lot of Europe, but I have not made it there. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I think so too.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, yeah, what's it like being part of the Canadian country music scene, even though you're not really in Canada?
I mean, yeah, I do go back and forth a fair bit in order to play shows. I think, for me, I kind of fall in the roots side of the Canadian country scene because, country music is at this moment, there's a lot of pop sounds and rock sounds in that soundscape. So I kind of fall on the root side of it. But I mean, I think it's such a great community. Like I know so many talented Canadians that are making great music and fighting the good fight to get it heard and doing cool things. So I think that's a really beautiful thing, especially growing up in Canada and growing up in the music scene. The country music community is more connected and more bonded than any of the other communities I've had the chance to be a part of. Um, Also, this year, I'm kind of diving into the folk circuit in Canada, which I'm really excited about. We've got some big showcases coming up in the folk music scene. And so I think it'll be really fun to branch out into that family and meet some new folks with that. But I think there's so much talent in Canada, and it's a beautiful thing to watch the amount of community around that.
Yeah, and everybody's very gracious and fun to talk to as well.
Yeah, we've got well, all of us musicians, we're a little weird, we've done some experimental shit, so we're a pretty fun bunch.
I wonder if part of what drove you into music is because there are certain ideas and thoughts and emotions that you find to be really true, but you cannot express it through language alone.
I think that that's very true. I think there is a magic, we've lived through this era of like incredible social divide over the last couple of years, right? Like we've seen, people just get so divided on issues. And if you put all of those people with 500 opinions on 500 people in a room and you play them a song, they can all connect to that same song. If it's, like there's a magic in music in the way that it connects us together, and it strips away it strips away language barriers. It strips away politics. It strips away that feeling of being alone. So there's a magic in music with that. And I think as a songwriter, it's always the intangible catch a falling star. Like sometimes it feels like that idea fell from the sky. And sometimes you get in there and you're really working hard for it. And that's where craft comes into the picture. But yeah, I think that, especially for me, who often has way too many words to talk with, I think I can sometimes most clearly express what's really going on in my heart and my brain through songwriting.
Maybe that's why in a world that seems so disconnected, where everyone seems to be so disconnected from everyone else, I certainly feel that way. Music seems to be perhaps the only thing left that really makes connections between people, don't you think?
I think that art in general, is something, like look at how many people revere the Mona Lisa,
Mhm.
right? Or look at like, you could have 50 people that don't know each other, and if they all watch the same TV show, they can talk about it. But music, especially, because I think it moves us on an emotional level. I think art is something that, as we're in this land of like streaming and everything's accessible and everybody can get anything at a drop of a hat, I think it's really important that we continue to place monetary value on art so that we can continue to make it. Because, what would our world be without it?
I'm reminded of what I believe to be the best song of this year, "Rich Man North of Richmond" by one Oliver Anthony Music, and it's a profoundly moving song. I mean, I'm like visibly shaken the first time that I listened to it, and there's this line in that song that says, "It's a damn shame what the world's going through, or coming to, sorry, what the world's coming to for people like me and people like you." It's it's a statement from the heart, I think, and you know, um, Anthony himself did not have any musical presence in the mainstream before this one, and it shot up to number one in the Billboard charts, and it shows that people are resonating towards it. But as always, politics has to ruin it, because people were dissecting the message behind the song in such ways that ruins the song's meaning, I think.
Yeah, I think that, when something rises like that there's a really poignant message, and I think that that's a beautiful thing when people can all connect on one thing.
Mhm. Yeah, and so I wonder if during the time of the pandemic, where live music was not a thing, how how do you stay connected to not just your fans but the listening public as a whole?
I mean, it goes right back to social media, right? Like social media was our window to the world, especially, in a world where we were, in bubbles, isolating, quarantining, having to stay home. Social media was our window to the world outside of our immediate sphere. So we did do a number of things because we had released the record in March of 2020, kind of was like right as everything was shutting down. So the timing was a little bit tricky. And so we were able to do a number of fun, remote recording projects to, keep releasing videos and, sending in videos to TV stations that we had things planned with. And so it was like, in its own way, that was a really interesting and fun time to get to create things. But I think for every person in the world, that time period had its own challenges. I know for me, it was really challenging in terms of, just where I was with releasing music and tour dates and all of those things. But I was able to spend a lot of time with my family at that time, which was a really beautiful thing because I've lived, so far away from home for a number of years. So I was able to spend a lot of time with my family and also do a lot of songwriting. The song that's coming out this week is a song that Scotty and I wrote sitting by the lake at my family's cabin during the pandemic.
Okay, so tell me more about the song.
I mean, that was really it. It felt like everybody around me was telling me I should have a baby before I got too old. And so, I was telling Scotty about it and we're having a laugh. And I was like, we could just not. And so we were just having a good time that day, sitting there in the sunshine and writing the song. I'm really excited for people to hear it. It's kind of a new chapter of my sound musically. It's a little bit bolder, a little bit more lively, a little more fun. But still really keeping those rootsy elements like, your banjo, your dobro. We've got like a smoking harmonica on it. And so I'm really excited for everyone to hear it. We did a really silly video. I do some crazy things like put $2,000 shoes in a baby stroller and push them around. We put a puppy in the video and dressed up as a number of different characters. I dress up as an old lady in the video, which is hysterical. So it was really fun to bring that all to life. So I'm excited for it to be fully out in the world.
Yeah, you have an EP released that year, 2020, is titled "After Midnight."
That's
I had
right.
a chance to listen to it earlier, and I think it's wonderful. It's very beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tell me about the recording of that set of songs.
Yeah, that album, it was really a labor of love and it was a really beautiful project in the sense that I made it with, a couple of my best friends. Scotty Kipper and Ryan Sorstad and I wrote all the songs together just kind of accidentally. And then Scotty and Dustin Olean um, co-produced this record with me. And no, I didn't produce it; they produced it. And we kind of had this dream of like, what if we called these our favorite like iconic roots musicians? So, guys from a Grammy-winning Western swing band called the Time Jumpers, people from the Goat Rodeo Sessions, people from Alison Krauss's band Union Station, absolutely iconic players. And what if we asked them to make this, really special roots project with us? And we're like three new kids in town that nobody knows about. We don't know our head from our feet, but we have a dream and we're going to do it. And bit by bit, we were able to pull that together and really dive in there in an intricate sense to make that music come alive. And so it was kind of a long time in the making. But I really feel like each piece of it is very unique and is very special, and it's very different from a lot of what's going on. And we were able to do, despite the pandemic, we were able to do a lot of really cool things with it. And then up in Canada, we got a number of award nominations, which we were really proud of for this record that we dreamed up to be nominated for Album of the Year at the Canadian Country Music Awards. So, yeah, so I'm very proud of it. I'm very excited, that it got to go out in the world, and really, as a solo artist, it was my first step forward. And so I'm really proud of it.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm a great fan of the bluegrass musical genre too. Whenever I think of bluegrass, I think of Alison Krauss and of course her band Union Station. She has such a beautiful voice, and the music that she's a part of there's a great deal of Americanness into it that is uniquely American, as in you cannot really reproduce that sound anywhere else, really. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that, Union Station and Alison Krauss are, they're sort of the leader of a genre of music that is so traditionally steeped and it is so iconic in the American music scene. But they had the magic and the ability to actually explode it into a global market. And I think that was a really special thing. Of course, she's a once in a lifetime vocalist. Every musician in that band is incredible in their own right. So it's just a magical synergy of people coming together to make music they truly love. And when you talk to them and you hang with them, they still love it. They're still that excited to make music every day. This many years later, but it was this magical thing where they really took that soundscape and gave it to the whole world.
Mhm. And I think it was a tremendous honor, I suppose, where you get all these like legendary musicians to work on basically a new album, a newbies album.
Absolutely. It was definitely like, it felt like a pipe dream as we were cooking it up. But sometimes I always think of bringing things into the world just like with sheer will. I'm like, no, we can do this. But it really was a team effort of, Dustin and Scotty and Ryan and I kind of dreaming that up and making that happen. And, everybody's talent and everybody's positive force in that to make that a reality. And then, of course, these incredible players coming in to bring it to life.
Mhm. So speaking about dreams, what is currently your, I guess, dream, musical dream at this point, whether it is your favorite venue to perform or your favorite artist to collaborate with?
I think the biggest thing on my radar right now is I'm trying to manifest into the world that I will be making my Grand Ole Opry debut within the next year. So I think with the new music, I just want more people to hear it. But I've had stars in my eyes with the Opry since I was a little kid watching it on TV. And that's a big dream for me. I just have such reverence for the history and what that institution means to the world of country music. So that's sort of the big dream on my radar right now.
Mhm. Yeah, tell me more about its significance.
I mean, the Grand Ole Opry, as I'm sure was really the beginning of, American country music being delivered to everyone in the country, you know. So you've got absolutely legendary heroes like your Johnny Cash, your Loretta Lynn, your Patsy Cline, you know, Hank Snow, you know, Bill Anderson, these legendary icons that built this tapestry of music that became the foundation of country music. You know, things like the Carter family, which be like the first family of country music, and having that tradition continue. You know, I have such a love for your '70s country, like your Merle Haggards, but then your '90s country, you know, like Randy Travis, Shenandoah, Colin Ray, and Pam Tillis, Lori Morgan, you know, and then that just I have such a deep love for traditional and roots country music, and there will always be a home for that on the Grand Ole Opry. Even if country becomes pop and rock, the Grand Ole Opry will always love and appreciate roots, bluegrass. There's also a big gospel tradition at the Opry, which I think is beautiful. And I mean, if you walk in that building, you can feel that energy of the roots and the music and what that tradition means. And I think every country music artist would say the Opry is a big, big dream because it means something. It means that you're accepted into a world that, you know, that you've dreamt about forever.
Mhm. I would love for you to have that dream come true for you, and I'm glad if you do ever do it, I'm glad to be part of that journey.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, here we you know, get up every day and we work and we see where it goes.
Mhm. So, what are some of the challenges of living the musician's life that non-musicians tend not to understand?
That's an interesting question for me because I grew up in a family of musicians, so I don't really know what normal is.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I think you know, I think our world is changing where so many people have, you know, their own businesses and their own jobs and online jobs. You know, I think that it never occurred to me the amount of, you know, online work and content creation that goes into being an independent artist. Um, but I love the music life. You know, I love to travel. Like I will get on a plane at any time of day with a smile on my face. And I love to meet new people. I do think, you know, sleep schedules can be interesting. You know, you need to be able to sleep anywhere, anytime if you're going to survive this thing. And, you know, certainly like keeping healthy habits, I think is important, you know, being judicious with, you know, alcohol and things like that and making sure you're taking good care of yourself. But um, I love it. Like I just didn't grow up in a normal family, so I don't know what that would be like.
Yeah, what I discovered upon moving to Europe, because again, I've only been here for a year. I was born in Hanoi, Vietnam, and I moved to Canada for 4 years to do my undergraduate. What I find is
Right.
that Europeans really love their leisure time. Um, they have Sundays off. All businesses and public offices are closed, except for restaurants. And people take summers off routinely. Like you'd go to your favorite coffee shop or restaurant or whatever, and find a notice on their door that says, "Hey, we're off to vacation for a month." So from
That,
this day to this day, and
that sounds great.
it's a unique cultural trait to see that Europeans are not as workaholics as, say, either Americans or Canadians or even East Asians like ourselves.
Hmm.
So I guess with that being established, how do you balance between work and leisure in your life as a musician?
I mean, you know, sometimes I think that balance can come in extremes, you know, in terms of it's like there was a season, you know, especially COVID gave us that season. There was a season where there wasn't that, there are seasons where there isn't that much going on, or that you're really just writing or you're really just recording. And now I'm entering an incredibly busy season of releasing music and touring, and also doing a lot of business stuff on the back end. And so I mean, because of the passion I have for that dream, it doesn't exhaust me. It excites me, but it's very long work days sometimes. Um, but I think, I'm definitely good at resting. I typically try to just say bye bye to the world on Sundays and get some rest and get outside and do that. But it comes in seasons, right? I think we're in a really busy season right now, but I certainly have had a pretty nice season of rest kind of before this, which is great. But I mean, maybe we should all move to Europe and take summers off. That might be nice. But I mean, if you took a summer off and there was no music festival to go see, that wouldn't be very much fun.
Yeah, I've definitely started taking Sundays off, or even sometimes taking even a weekend off. Especially since I've become religious. Actually, I didn't grow up religious, but a year ago I converted to Catholicism, and for one thing, that made me appreciate Sundays even more. Um, and actually, since moving into Europe, I've sort of I've been reconsidering my ethos of of hard work and the go-getter attitude that many people have. In that uh, there are times when um, after like a long, hard school year and such, and summer begins to kick in, there are days when I feel guilty about not having done anything, and that's not something that I want to feel. I think relaxation is good. Um, so I wonder if that has ever occurred to you.
Oh, I'm good at relaxing. Trust
Oh,
me.
that's
I'm very good at relaxing. And I think too, I think when you're a creative person, things are not linear and they're not number metric. I think creativity needs room to breathe and think and grow. And so you have to do things that feed it. Things that like reading books or doing nothing or going to the lake or going outside or having a deep conversation or sometimes watching TV or listening to other music or just like noodling around on an instrument or writing poems or traveling to new places that inspire you. So creativity isn't linear. It is like it isn't checking boxes. It is like following the road less, you know?
so it's creativity to you a way of being rather than just work.
Yeah, creativity I don't think of as work.
Mhm.
I think it is sort of a state to exist in. And I do have to, I do have to come in and out of it sometimes because sometimes we need to go into like checklisty work mode, when we're packing the car to go on tour and we're, double checking the schedules and we're, handling business. But I definitely try to exist in a state of creative flow. I try to not have to turn it out off, but just to be able to kind of flow in and out easily.
Mhm. So, tell me about some of the musical artists who've inspired you. I know we touched on a few of them, but I'd like to hear.
Yeah, I think that, for me, it kind of has an array of, different music sounds. I really have a love for a lot of some older music. People like Simon and Garfunkel was huge to me. Gordon Lightfoot, Joni Mitchell, James Taylor is, that's my dream collaboration. Carole King, Fleetwood Mac, and then, on the country sphere, you have, like Dolly Parton, Pam Tillis. There was a father-daughter duo called the Kendalls that I was a really big fan of. Merle Haggard's a big one. I'm a massive Don Williams fan. Keith Whitley, and then I'm a big Celine Dion fan. I don't care what anybody says. Celine Dion is the queen. Um, and so it's growing up in Canada, like Shania Twain was a big influence on me. Um, but yeah, people that really had their own unique voice of what they wanted to say and wrote their own songs. And I'm also a big David Foster fan, who David Foster's a producer, but so many different things. And then I also love like classical music. Like I loved to listen to Il Divo. I studied opera for a number of years. Um, and I love Celtic music. Like growing up in Canada, again, Great Big Sea was a massive influence. The Rankin family.
Yeah, I discovered you through Mallory, of course, but specifically through your cover of After the Gold Rush by Neil Young. And
Ah,
yeah, it was an amazing cover of course, an amazing song. Neil Young has had a profound influence in my life. And
awesome.
when I was in Canada, I studied in Peterborough, which is quite close to the town
Oh,
where
yeah.
he grew
Yeah, I
up in,
know.
which is Omimi. Right? So tell me more about how Neil Young's influence on you.
I mean, to be honest, my dad was a big Neil Young fan, so it was in my sphere that way. But it was actually not one of my bigger influences. Obviously, Neil Young's completely iconic, and I was fortunate enough to grow up with some of that music, just kind of in the background of the tapestry of my childhood because of my dad, which I think is awesome. But yeah, Molly, who's in that video, is like a really deep Neil Young fan.
Wow, that's cool. So tell me about some of the recent shows that you've had this summer.
Yeah, we got to do some really fun tour dates. I went out to Wisconsin and played a few shows, did some festivals out there. And then up in Canada, I did a show in my hometown at this brand new venue called The Bunker, which is really cool. They've actually modeled it after the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville, but they've put it right in Stratford, Ontario, Stratford is, of course, such a beautiful town to visit. It's one of the biggest tourist cities in Canada because it is the home of the Shakespearean Theatre Festival. And of course, they have like Elizabethan flower gardens. It's a really incredible place to go visit. So we played a big show there, and a number of other shows up in more like Northern Ontario as well, which was really fun. And then I played the Bluebird this summer as well. That was no, I had played the Bluebird something like 10 years ago in a different band I was in, but it was my solo artist debut at the Bluebird, which was a really special moment as well. And then a number of bigger songwriter shows here in Nashville and a number of shows that are coming up in September that we're excited about as well. So it's been a great season between, making the new music and getting out on the road to play it for people for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd say I would like to visit Stratford at some point because Shakespeare's also had a indelible influence in yeah my life. I'm a great big reader, and I think no one has had a more profound influence on the English language than the Bard, than William Shakespeare. Um, I think he can do everything really, comedies and tragedies and romance, and even even for people who are not into drama, like say songwriting. I think his um his writing style can also be very helpful.
Yeah, you know, I think all of us grow up and we obviously learn Shakespeare to an extent in school. I actually took an English literature degree. So I have quite a deep amount of Shakespeare that has permeated my brain and I'm very fortunate to do so. And then of course, being around Stratford and around the Shakespearean Festival. And I'm such a book nerd. Like my house is just stacks and stacks of books. And one of the things that I love to do when I travel is visit, local bookstores or like used bookstores. And I like to find really old books. Like I don't like to read on a Kindle or on a phone. Like I really still there's something so special about, to me, a book is like vinyl, it's something tangible. So I've read quite a lot of Shakespeare. Of course, I've probably forgotten more than I remember at this point, but of course, one of the most incredible talents that we've ever seen.
Yeah, my university degree was in English literature too. So yeah, I know what it's like to read for
Oh, and you remember just I remember like going through the syllabus and being like, okay, this class has told us to read 20 books, but they're only testing these 15 of them. So maybe we could not read those five because you'd have that for like five different classes. You'd be like, am I reading 40 books this semester?
Mhm.
And you were. And you were just like, I don't know about you, but I would be like passed out, like falling asleep in the library with stacks of books around me. But I loved reading, and I still do. I'll go on a bender and I'll just read like four books for 3 days straight, and then I'll realize I need to come back to the world.
Mhm. I think the best thing about that is that you don't really have to buy a textbook or rent a textbook and then the one that you would like return it or resell it the next year.
That's true. I still have a bunch of like English literature books like stacked over there, like old poetry books and like English like dialects. And I don't know about you, but you remember like having to take, different dialects of literature.
Wow.
I will just say I have a writing session arriving at 11 o'clock and I'm just watching him pull in the driveway. So we may be just running out of time here.
Okay, I think we can wrap this up at this moment too. So final question, Callie. What does music mean to you?
It's such a big question that it's like it's almost like it's who I am,
Mhm.
right? Like I don't know who I am without it. But I think that it is, music is it's a dream, it's an intangible, it's a feeling, you know, it's definitely one of the most powerful forces in our world. So, I think that that's a really special thing.
Mhm. Well, on that wonderful note, thank you very much, Callie McCullough,
Awesome.
for being on this show.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and it was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. And have a good writing session.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Have a great day.